Hello everyone, welcome back. It is the 9th of March 2020 and I'm here with another update about the coronavirus. Today, as I record in this video, there are 113,751 total cases of the coronavirus. Right now, Europe is the flashpoint, with Italy today coming in at 1,797 new cases. That's like almost on par with what China was having back in January, February time. That's crazy. Iran in second place with 595 new cases, followed by Spain with 399 new cases. South Korea really seems to have got a handle on it with only 165 new cases today. I say only because, once again, I'm comparing it to the cases they had before, so they seem to have really got it under control. Fingers crossed it stays that way. The UK today has 43 additional cases, but to be honest, I'm looking at this list and Europe seems to be having so many new cases right now. And like I mentioned in a previous video, it seems to be the place in the world that is the most relaxed about the coronavirus. Anyway, not going to talk about the numbers so much today, I'll do that tomorrow. On with the news. And onto the news. First things first, Thailand. Did anyone see Thailand's WHO representative the other day? If you didn't, take a look at this video.
Next speaker is Thailand, followed by Ethiopia and then Belgium. Thailand, floor is yours.
Chair, WHO's advice against travel restriction on novel coronavirus in China has been violated. This is in contrast to the H1N1 2009 pandemic, emerged from other parts of the world and spread out much faster and killed more. We are definitely double or even triple standard. Chair, if we implement travel restriction and have to quarantine, we have to quarantine the DG who just come back from China and cancel this EB. Many people here, including those from the countries that implement travel restriction, shake hands and even hug Dr. Tedros. They are all vulnerable, except me. Dr. Tedros declined to hug or shake hands with me in the last 3-4 days. Particularly you, Chair, who sits next to him all the time, would be the most vulnerable. Chair, we need to bring back global confidence, solidarity, and stop the panic immediately. To achieve that, I would like to propose to the DG, through you, Chair, to immediately convene a global meeting of WHO staff and experts in China, especially in Wuhan. We can all appreciate the most charming yellow crane tower built almost 2,000 years ago, with very few tourists. If convened in Beijing, it would be the best time to visit the Great Wall and Forbidden City without too many tourists and at low cost. Chair, with my wife's permission, I am happy to pledge half of my annual pension to support this meeting and join in with my own expense. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Funny, funny, funny. Oh my god, that was so funny. Oh my god. It seems like I'm not the only one who doesn't like the WHO. I can completely relate with a lot of countries around the world that don't take the coronavirus seriously, because a lot of these viruses, these coronaviruses and stuff, you know, they come and go. And for example, if you take SARS, SARS is probably the closest that we've got to compare it to. I guess H1N1 is also another one, but let's stick with SARS. SARS was like the big one, right? The big one. And if you look at this map, the numbers of cases and the spread, and this is like the total. It finished, it came and went. So yes, it spread around the world. Yes, it caused a few deaths, but would it be appropriate to close off countries, stop air travel, lock down towns and cities? So like the UK had 4 cases of SARS, so would it be appropriate at that time with 4 cases of a disease that you don't know if it's going to come and go? But at that time when you have 4, is it enough to like say, okay, now we're going to lock down 20% of our GDP. We're going to lock it off completely. No activity, nothing, stay indoors. Would that be appropriate? When you look back at something like that, you would start to think, well, no, it wouldn't be appropriate. But when you're in the middle of it, like now, we're in the coronavirus, you have no idea. Yeah, there were a lot of cases in China, so I guess just from the rapid spread in China, a lot of countries around the world, for example, in Europe and America, we could have used that head start and seen like, well, it spread so rapidly in China. Like, I'm telling you, within like a month, there were thousands of cases. It's so rapid. I think that would be more worthwhile thinking about quarantining and locking down stuff. But it's a tough call to make because you really have no idea. You don't know if when it arrives in a different climate, it's going to spread as fast. You don't know if when it gets to summer or winter or whatever, it's going to die out. So it's hard to know when to close off the town, close off the city, close off a province, and potentially cause a lot of disruption. So I do feel for these leaders who are having to make that decision. All I can say is that individuals can protect themselves. But again, I guess that's in some way some kind of quarantining, isn't it? By not going to crowded places, not going to those football matches, those birthday parties, those holidays, not going on a plane or a ferry or a boat or any kind of cruise ship, and just generally trying to stay indoors. It's kind of self-quarantining. So wear a face mask, wash your hands as much as you can. That's about all I can really say. I'm just worried when everything gets back to normal here and they start opening schools again, if there's going to be like the second wave, because WHO is still not telling people to shut down travel, and so travel is still a thing. What do you think they should do, and which area in the world do you think should be the next place that has an official lockdown, as in nothing in, nothing out? I'm going to say something and it could be controversial because every time you say something that's not negative about China, people start going crazy, like saying, oh my God, you love China, all this. It's not that, it's just I want to say something, okay? So a lot of the news and a lot of world leaders are suspecting that this virus came from a lab in China, this P4 lab. And if that's the case, then is that at the same time an admission that Chinese scientists are so far ahead of the rest of the world that they've produced a virus and let it out, and nowhere else in the entire world has studied this virus, and nowhere in the world have they studied any kind of cure or vaccination for this particular virus? Are they saying that Chinese scientists are so advanced that the entire world is going into meltdown and only China has got to this kind of level where they can release a virus and it just like goes around the world and annihilates everyone? Are they saying that? It reminds me of when they talk about North Korean hackers as well, and they say North Korean hackers are attacking our systems and stealing our data. Well, make better systems. Isn't this the same North Korea where people say people haven't even got rice to eat and people are starving every day, but yet they've got more advanced computers and more advanced technology, they can hack government equipment? It just seems so stupid. And I've only just realized that at one point they said that SARS was man-made and probably man-made in China. That's crazy. So it's like a repeat of SARS, but more advanced. So what do you think? Are Chinese scientists so far ahead of the rest of the world? Or are you of the belief, like I am, that this virus has somehow been transferred from some animal somewhere, and not necessarily that market, but some animal somewhere transferred from animal to human and that way, and now it's spreading around the world? Which one do you think? I've just said that I think it came from an animal. Even I'm not sure. But I'm just not sure that it came from a Chinese scientist lab. I just don't know what to think, to be honest. But sticking with the China rumours, about 2 months ago they were saying how China was not being upfront with the numbers, not being upfront with the source, not being upfront with all this stuff. Well, right now, this virus is all around the world. So every country, almost every country, has their patient zero. They can just start the work from there. Some countries, for example the UK and in Europe, it's been in the UK since January, so we didn't need to wait for China to talk about where it came from or whatever. We could just start with the patient zero that came to the UK with the virus. Start with that person and start working on that virus. We can't still use the excuse in March that China wasn't up front in December. Come on, it's almost everywhere in the world now. We've had plenty of time to do research if that was the actual reason. We've had plenty of time to do the research, so I don't think it's fair to still use the excuse of back in December or early January China didn't tell everyone so that they could have a head start or something, because a lot of time has passed and people have done nothing. People still are doing nothing. There are still medical officials in some countries that refuse to wear face masks because they find them uncomfortable. Imagine that. Your comfort or your life. China, Russia, France, Germany, I'm not sure who else can actually manufacture stuff, but those countries have now blocked medical exports. So that includes stuff like face masks and medicines and protective equipment and stuff like that. It's a tough time, really, isn't it? And especially with France and Germany, because they are EU countries and they're not even exporting to each other. Doesn't that kind of go against the whole EU principle of open borders within the EU? I'm not sure what's going on there, but it's time that a lot of countries reassess their supply chains, because you never know who you can rely on in a time of need, you know? This is a time of need for most countries around the world. A lot of countries now are needing, full body protective equipment, face masks and respirators and whatever else to deal with this kind of virus. And if countries are starting to ban exporting of this equipment, but at the same time, once again, I understand if your country is using up so many of these bodysuits and face masks, how can you justify selling them to another country and then not having enough in your own country? Oh, these decisions that these leaders have to make, it's not easy, really not easy. Scientists in London will pay people £3,500 to be infected with the coronavirus so they can test if a vaccine works. So if you're in the UK and you're interested in dying potentially, then you can head on down there to London, find that science lab. If you want to find out more, then just go there, find out. If you want to die, there's an outbreak going on right now as we speak. Look at the chart of how fast it's spread in the UK. But if you want to be voluntarily infected with a weaker strain of coronavirus, head on down there. You can collect your £3,500. I assume if you survive and if the cure works. I thought they used animals to test this kind of stuff. I know eventually they have to use it on people, but it seems pretty fast. I'll pass. Last thing I want to talk about is this couple, a British man and his Chinese wife. They went to a restaurant less than 48 hours after arriving back in the UK, and this was last week. If this story is as it reads in this newspaper, then that is crazy, and I'm supporting the restaurant owner, to be honest. And I think everyone else should do that as well. If you've come back from one of the places that's in the, you could say, the red zone, which is one of the places with a high infection or an outbreak. I don't know what the word is. I don't know the terminology. An outbreak, let's just say. If you're from one of the places that's experiencing the massive outbreak, like Italy, Iran, China, South Korea, etc., the Diamond Princess, if you're from one of those places and you come back to the UK, you need to quarantine yourself for 2 weeks. He might feel fine, he might have had his temperature checked, but it takes 2 weeks before you start showing symptoms, up to 2 weeks. So, you see, stuff like this, that's why you need to force people to quarantine. You can't just let people come back to the UK or to any country right now without really checking to see where did they come from, where did they fly from. I'm going to continue staying inside and I'm going to watch this from the internet and hopefully not get infected. Oh my God, if I get infected. That's all for today. Let's talk about this in the comments down below and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.